Ginny Burton has been sober for 9 years. After struggling with drug addiction for most of her life, Burton got clean in 2012. The mom of 3 graduated from Washington State University with her degree in political science in June. I just thought that, besides the fact that there was such a vast contrast there, and it just really, for me, it just showed the depth of my journey in those 2 photos, Burton told Fox. Burton told Fox that she was introduced to drugs by her mom when she was just 7 years old, and by 14, she started smoking crack. By the time she was 15, Burton said she was a full-blown crack addict. There were 7 of us kids, and so our existence was really chaotic, Burton told Fox. So I found, in time, that my relationship with drugs actually provided me an escape. My life just sort of unraveled in that way. And I was becoming the exact thing that I did not want to become, which was my mom. Ginny Burton, 48, has struggled with drug addiction for most of her life, but got clean in 2012 after she was arrested. She graduated from Washington State University with her degree in political science in June. Even though she had loved school as a child and had wanted to become an attorney, Burton said the last grade she finished from beginning to end was the 6th grade. She said she was in and out of 7th and 8th grade doing classwork when she was in juvenile hall. By 9th grade, Burton officially quit school.
I became everything that I never wanted to be, Burton said. She said that as she got older, her addiction just really spiraled out of control. When she was in her 20s, Burton said she was in and out of prison. Though she got sober for about a year and a half after her second prison term, she ended up relapsing. I had a really hard time, Burton said. Once I started using again, I had a hard time quitting. It was almost like I was watching my life from the outside. I started using and then I couldn't stop, and I wanted to stop and I could not stop for anything. Around that time, Burton's grandmother, who played a big part in raising her, and mother both died. Burton said she then married a man who was abusive. I didn't think I could pull myself out of it, so I thought that using would be the best way to alleviate what I was experiencing, Burton said, adding later, it was almost like I was watching my life from the outside. I started using and then I couldn't stop, and I wanted to stop and I could not stop for anything. Even when I was arrested and knew I didn't want to be using anymore, I ended up getting bailed out the first time. I still immediately went back to the using, Burton said. In 2012, Burton was arrested again. The bail was set too high, and she was unable to be released, she said. She was also given the opportunity to go to drug court and had support to get a private attorney. Burton spent 6 months in jail, and during that time, she went through withdrawal and was finally able to do a lot of personal work on myself, she said. I recognized that my problem was me, Burton said. It wasn't what my mom did to me, it wasn't the abuse that I experienced from my husband, but it was the choices that I was making. And so I became really, really committed to figuring me out, to changing the narrative. I recognized that the messages that I had been giving to myself, those came from somewhere else, and at some point, I made the decision to consent to making those my truths, she added. And so, it had to be possible for me to change those things. Burton said she would write down positive words and repeat them to herself instead every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Eventually I was able to actually look myself in the eyes and tell myself that I love myself, Burton said. So that's what I've done every day for the last almost 9 years, as I've reaffirmed those messages. Ahead of her graduation ceremony, Burton shared these photos, a 2005 mugshot during one of the most intense times of her addiction, and her graduation photos on Facebook. The post quickly went viral. Over the last 9 years, Burton has gotten into hiking, climbing, cycling and running, which has been probably the most transformative thing that I have ever allowed myself to experience, she said. Though 2 of her children are 28 and 29, Burton and her 15-year-old daughter just moved to San Diego from Rochester, Washington, for a new job opportunity. She also posts about her journey on social media as a way to encourage some of her friends who are still in active addiction, who she keeps in touch with online. Because so many people know what my life was like when I was in addiction, it was really important to me to share those pictures and to show people what's possible, Burton said. Eventually I was able to actually look myself in the eyes and tell myself that I love myself. So that's what I've done every day for the last almost 9 years, as I've reaffirmed those messages. Those kinds of posts can be really helpful for people in recovery who may feel isolated and alone, according to Brad McLeod, the moderator of Sober Motivation, a blog and Instagram page that shares people's stories of recovery. McLeod, 34, from Ontario, Canada, started his own recovery from addiction to heroin and prescription pills in 2010. He had grown up in North Carolina, but got in trouble with the law too many times and was deported back to Canada because of his addiction. Once he was back in Canada, McLeod said he started over and went back to school, where he studied addiction counseling. Currently, he works in digital marketing and runs the Sober Motivation blog, which he started in 2018 to help get the word out there that recovery was possible, he said. Today, the Instagram page has more than 74,500 followers. When I first started my journey, it was more or less in church basements, 12-step meetings, rehab, McLeod said. It was a lot different. You didn't really talk about it. Not many people talked about it. My hope for it, is that it can help people feel like they're not alone, and maybe there's something in somebody's story that they can relate to either keep going with their own sobriety, or maybe people can use it as a place to get started, McLeod said. McLeod said his page also helps people see the different ways people can get sober. A lot of people are getting sober in different ways, not just your traditional treatment or your 12-step meetings anymore, McLeod said. There's a lot of different groups that people will form and different communities. I specifically shared those for that purpose, to show the contrast and to say I don't care where you're from, what you've done, what your life looks like and how old you are. We can do this. McLeod said that the internet can be a helpful place for people to get started on their recovery journey.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.